and welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a very simple and delicious rich recipe for you. This is a yam curry, and this is a really excellent recipe in the winter. You've got those nice root vegetables, and it's very rich, very warming. You can see we've got it garnished with a little bit of feta cheese here, but let's get going and show you our ingredients. So we've got these great yams. You can also use sweet potatoes, which are slightly different. We're going to use some white onion, some curry powder, some coconut milk. We're going to use a can of tomatoes, some ginger, and some garlic. It's a very, very simple recipe. Now the curry powder, you can use your favorite, version that you can find at the store, or mix your own. We mixed our own using our spice grinder. Very, very simple. But we're going to start with our onions. So first things first, we're going to peel these. And these are going to cook for a long, long time. We're going to cook these until they are very much reduced. So we're going to just cut them into pretty small half rings here. And that's about the size we want these. So you can see here Chef Ketel's cutting them pretty thin. And just getting down to the end of the root there. So we're going to put these into a pot with some butter. We're going to start with a little bit of butter into our Dutch oven here. And then the onions are going to go in once it's started to melt, and these are going to cook at a very, very low temperature for quite a long time. We don't want to sear these. We don't want to give them a lot of color. We want them to very slowly cook down, wilt, and gain color very, very slowly. So a little bit of salt in there, just a tiny, tiny bit of salt. Just a little sprinkle. We don't want to oversalt this, and then you can see here we've added another onion in here. Obviously, it's cooked down quite a lot, but this is really, really good. This is about the speed we want to go at. So you can see they're starting to turn a little bit darker. They've obviously wilted all the way. Some juices have come out, but they're just really, really cooking slowly to get a lot of flavor. And this is about as far as we want to go. So not a lot of strong sear. You don't see a lot of browning in there as far as a really strong sear. It has been cooking on a low temperature for a long, long time to get this temperature, to get this color. So it's very similar to what you do for something like a French onion soup. So we're going to add about half of our curry powder here. For all of the amounts for the ingredients, you can check the description below. We're just going to stir that until it's all well combined. And then we're going to add our can of tomatoes. So these are whole canned tomatoes. We're just going to stir these in. We're going to add a little tiny bit of water just to get the last of it out of the can there. And then you want to break them up a little tiny bit. If you use diced tomatoes, this will end up coming out quite a bit thicker. So we prefer the whole tomatoes just because you get a little bit more control over the consistency of your final product. So you can break those tomatoes up a little bit as you're cooking. It's not always nice to get a big chunk of tomato, and of course as they cook they will sort of fall apart as well. So we're going to put the lid back on that and let that cook for a little while. Meanwhile, we're going to get our aromatics ready. So here is the garlic. We're just going to crush that and peel it. And then we're also going to deal with our ginger at the same time. So we're just going to peel this ginger. This is a little bit old. You can see it's a little bit wrinkled, which is actually quite nice. It means there's quite a sort of concentration of the flavor in there. We're just going to cut the skin off, and whatever we missed from the knife, we're just going to give a little trim to make sure we're getting all the skin out of there. And then we're going to chop this together with the garlic. So this is all just going to go at about the same size into our pot once it's all chopped. And we want to just cut this into small pieces. Again, this is going to cook for quite some time, so it can be quite small. It's mostly going to disappear into the gravy of the curry. And we're not looking for a big chunk of ginger or a big piece of garlic. We're looking for just that general flavor to mix through the entire recipe, the entire dish. So we want it in nice small pieces so it can distribute very, very evenly through the whole dish. Going back to check our curry here. So this is just about where we want it. You can see it's on a pretty serious simmer. We're going to add our aromatics to that and cover that back up. So while that's cooking, it's time to get our yams ready. So we're going to peel these. It's not like potatoes where you want to keep the skin on frequently. The skins on the yams and the sweet potatoes are a little more fibrous and a little less pleasant most of the time. So we're gonna peel these before we use them. So there you go. There's your fully peeled yam, and we're gonna leave these in pretty big sort of chunky pieces. We're just gonna cut these into rounds. And you can see they're pretty sizable because they are going to cook for some time. We are going to let them cook for a long, long time so that they get nice and soft, but we do want them to retain their shape somewhat. And that's about as big as small as we want to make them. So we're just going to pop those right into the curry. So there's all of our yams in the curry, and we just want to make sure that these are going to be covered. So we're going to give it a stir, just to see where everything sits. And if you need to add a little bit of liquid at this point, that is perfectly fine. So we're going to actually add a little bit of water to this. And just give it a stir, just making sure that everything is well covered. So once everything's well covered, you've got everything combined, you've got all of the yams are pretty much under the water. We're going to cover that up, and that's going to cook for some time. So that's all you need to do for a long time. I'm going to give that a little stir again once we take the lid off. And now's a good time. This has been cooking for a long, long time, so we're going to test these yams and see if they are ready yet. So just the standard little fork test. We're going to give it a poke. If it is good and soft, then it is ready to go. So our next step is to add the coconut milk. Now you want to try and find one that is actual coconut milk. It doesn't have a lot of preservatives or anything in it. This one is one that we enjoy. It's got a great flavor. It's the real deal. It's a really great one to use. And we're just going to stir that in and make sure that it's all well combined. Now this is of course going to lower the temperature of everything for a little while, so we are going to make sure that everything comes back up to temperature once we've added the coconut milk. And now is also a great time to add the remainder of our curry powder. So we're just going to give that a stir in to make sure that it is well distributed throughout the entire dish. And then we're just going to let everything come back up to temperature now that we've added some new cold ingredients. It is a great time to taste it and make sure that it doesn't need any adjustment, any salt, a little bit of something like Tabasco sauce. Does it need a little bit of a little acidic kick, some lemon juice even, anything like that? Now is the time to add those things. So once everything is back up to temperature, those yams are nice and soft, everything is cooked, the coconut milk is nice and hot with everything else. It's ready to serve. That's it. That's the whole thing. Really, really simple. We are garnishing this with a little bit of feta cheese. You can also use something like pumpkin seeds or toasted sunflower seeds, or even something like paneer or palak. Absolutely delicious. Really, really simple dish, and very nice and warming when it's cold outside. We highly recommend that you give this a try. So if you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.